you were saying before that you're single, flying around, giving around.
Yeah, but then you can't, like, this is where I get into trouble because I can't date. Like, because of this, like, I've done it before where I've been like, fuck it, I'll give over an evening. Like, you can have a, Thursday or God forbid, like a Friday. And if it's a bad date, like if you're sat there with it, like, it's not even that I would rather they were hateful. Like, I would rather they were hateful, misogynistic, like evil assholes. It's when you're sat with someone boring and you're sat there, you're like, I could be at a fucking show and I'm here because of you. And it's like the rage that builds. And so I was like, no, I'm not. So I did it's awful. So you find yourself, like the last day I did like midday on a Sunday. Which is when people feel so sexy.
That's when the most exciting people come out at that time.
Midday on a Sunday, like wedged between babies and puppies.
Everyone else on a Sunday is strolling with their dog, picking up poo in a bag.
Being wholesome and being and I'm sitting there being like, oh God, fuck you, and not in a fun way. Like, but it's just that thing of, I'm not going to make space for someone who's probably going to be shit and let me down. And so, you're having your date.
It cost me $500, you boring
honestly,
shit.
that, you fucking better pick up the tab because this is, sweet money that I'm not making.
You want them to be evil or crazy or something so you get a story out of it.
Exactly, it's a set. You're like, at least have something where this is worth my time being here. But it's when they're just like nothing, it's when they're nothing. That's when it starts getting
really
panicky.
Bad date. You're just thinking, this is great. This is an Edinburgh Fringe show.
For sure.
Here.
The first ever Hinge date, the first ever app date I went on, it was this mind-bogglingly dull New Zealand man. I think they might all be dull. Is that a thing? Like,
no comment.
Okay, but like mine.
I've never dated any. So
sure. So you haven't been in that boat. I just talk to me through, and his profile, he'd trekked the Sahara and done whitewater rapids. I was like, this guy's lived. Do you know what I mean? This guy's done stuff. He's at least gonna have stories. Did he fuck? He just he just ran through recent stag do's he'd been on, and we were walking, so it was obviously pandemic, so that's all you were allowed to do, walking. And this homeless person ran up to me, and I knew they were homeless, and they were also not mentally particularly well, because they were muttering, and they were running towards me, and they ran towards me and just punched me in the arm and went, pussy, and then continued running.
A sign from God.
Eddie, literally in my head, I was like, you're right. You're right. I'm
the
here.
Best thing that happened on this date. Thank you.
Literally, I was like, thank you so much.
Do you want to go out?
And the gays behind me were like, oh my God, that was so random. And I was like, is that fucking? I was like, what? And he didn't even acknowledge it. He just sort of waited for me to be sort of over it, and then continued telling his story. I was like, I think you're boring. You're boring when something insane like that happens and you can't even register it. It's literally computer says no.
Does he not have any protective instinct? I know it's only the first date. It usually takes a while for that protective instinct to kick in.
Not one bit.
Not a bit.
He was more. I think he more just wanted to get to the next part of the stag do story.
Wow.
Yeah. So after that, I was like, I don't think you're allowed to date any. I think that was my sign from God, being like, I am a pussy because I shouldn't even have got past 11 minutes on this, and here I am, and this is my karma.
You got to turn to him and goes, and he starts his story again. You go, hey, well, excuse me. At any point in this stag do, did a homeless person muttering punch you in the arm after spring towards you, call you a pussy and run off? Because if it's not better than that, your story's over.
Don't want to hear it. Don't want to hear it.
People give out about getting catfished so they'll have a fake photo or a dolled up photo. Yeah. But no one talks about catfish and someone being way more boring than their personality fish.
Yeah. What would we call that?
It's a decaf.
Yeah, it's a decaf cappuccino fish. Yeah, it's not real. I agree with that.
Yeah. Do you find this with dating? Because I didn't really realise because I love listening. I love I'll interrupt obviously, but then when you watch First Dates, because I love that show, when if it's a guy and a girl on a date, the guy is just talking too much to try and impress instead of asking questions. Do you find that with dates?
Every single one.
Right.
I would say almost without exception that And I'm trying to give them benefit of the doubt, especially on the last one I was on, because he'd seen me do comedy, and it was the first time ever someone slid into my DMs after a show and been like, I'd love to take you out for a drink. Never. I know you guys get it all the time, but girls never, female comedians never get guys slipping into the DMs afterwards being like, I'd love to take you for a drink. Because we're a nightmare. It's a nightmare. The idea of a woman being funnier than you, nightmare for the... So this guy did, and I was like, well, this behaviour absolutely has to be rewarded. So yes, I will absolutely go for it. I couldn't really remember what he looked like, but anyway, he talked about himself solidly for 2 hours. And in my head, I was like, Is it because he's seen me do my thing and he needs me to know he also has a thing? Right. But the problem was he didn't. Like, he had none of the things. I was like, what do we do? Like, we went through how good he was at sport at school.
Living in the past, man.
That's like one of the worst things to try and impress anyone is how good I was in the past.
Yeah, one time.
That wasn't particularly
difficult.
difficult.
You should have seen me when I was 10.
Yeah, but
I was a beast at football.
Also, like, we all were. Do you know what I mean? Like, we were all fucking crushing the athletes game at 14. And I just remember being like, it's even if you've got here and decided I'm not that fair or I'm not that funny and you don't want to be here, whatever. As a female comedian, you've got to at least believe I've got some good stories. Like, you've got to believe anecdotally I'm bringing heat. But not a fucking thing. Ask something.
Ask something. I was a wingman. This is to remind me of something. I was in Glasgow and I was a wing. My mate liked this girl and I was just a wingman. We were just out, and then the girl that wasn't going well. But then I was just talking to this girl and I just asked her like 3 questions, like, "Oh, where are you from?" And then I asked her another question, and then I asked her another question.
Yeah.
And she was talking, and we were having a good laugh. and then when the two of them came back and we were talking, and she goes to her mate, she goes, "This guy, this Aussie guy, he's good chat." She said I was good chat, and
3
I was
questions.
like, I asked her 3 questions,
yeah.
and we were laughing, and I was chipping in.
Yeah.
And good chat, and then that date there was awful, and then afterwards he went to the toilet, and she was like, "No, it's not going to work."
It is unbelievable, but I kind of am
You're a bad wingman.
I'm a bad wingman.
Too good, yeah.
But a good wingman is the dullest fucker
the
you've
dullest.
Ever met. Just like boring the fuck out of them, and you sweep in. You're like,
it's what women do to their bridesmaids on their wedding day. They make all their hot friends. They put them in such appalling dresses that they're all munters. So the bride look extra special. That has to be the logic. Like, bridesmaids look too awful. That has to be the logic. So purple, I think you have to, the purple, like
shiny shoulder
velour. Yeah, exactly.
Well, you were screwing your maid over that day.
Yeah, you need to wear purple.
But it wasn't until I watched First Dates. You never watch people date.
No,
I didn't know that. Like
men
a lot of
really
straight men, they just have to impress. It's like
What's wrong with the male brain that they're so bad at listening, and especially in those first dates when they're.
But that's a question for you. Like, why do you think? I have no fucking idea, because I'm sitting there being like, I'd like to know more about this person, because how do you decide if you like them or not? So what is the psyche? Are they being like, are they peacocking? Is it like here's all my goddamn feathers? Like, is that what it is?
It has to be.
It has to be.
Because it has to die down after a certain point, because they'll run out of their shitty stag stories.
Yeah, you've seen them all. Yeah.
Do you know what? Watch any old couple.
Yeah.
And the guy doesn't say nothing. He's done all his talking
he
on
did
the
it.
first.
Yeah, he ran out of feathers. Yeah. Yeah.
Space it out, dude.
That's it, Hattie. You need to give them like 4 dates, and if by the 4th they shut the fuck up, and you're having a great laugh, then
that's the one.
Yeah.
That's how I'm going to snag them.
It's also lazy, lads. If you listen, go on a date, you're lazy. You don't have to prepare anything. Just a couple of questions. Just questions.
And you,
put it on
as a female comedian, and I don't want to say female, as a comedian who's female in London, and she has them back. She's like, and you, just that, just at the when you finished answering my question, be like, and you, like, it's so easy. It's so easy. But yeah.
Because if you fancy someone. Because when you fancy someone, you want to know all about them. You don't want to be like, me. Because then you go away and go, I don't know anything about this person.
Yeah, but do you? I think when you really fancy someone, maybe what they're doing is trying to make them really fancy them. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you already know you fancy a person, then maybe you are peacocking extra hard. Maybe you're like giving it full.
From insecurity.
Got to.
It has to, yeah.
I have to believe that, or else, because the other option is that I'm boring and they don't care. Do you know what I mean? So I have to.
And that is not an option.
It's not an option.
No. So they are. It's deep.
So they're actually really insecure and intimidated. So.
But it is true. If you're really comfortable in yourself.
Yeah.
And you have a great story. You leave it at that. You're like, and you you're gonna be just relaxed and zen in yourself.
Yeah.
You feel confident, and you won't feel like, oh God, I gotta tell you something else. I gotta tell you something else. I gotta tell you.
Yeah.
So a bunch of losers. That's what it is.
You're so right, guys. I'm so glad we've cracked this. It is, oh God, as she says, pissed on a decaf cappuccino. So worry about it.